Welcome to my presentation on the study of exploring the relationship between sleep and obesity among undergraduate students. The drastic change from high school to university or college can completely alter the life of a student. This affects almost all aspects of their life, from social relationships to academic performance, which places a strain on their sleeping patterns. There is a sufficient and credible amount of research showing the importance of sleep for your overall health. While knowing this, young adults, particularly university and college students, seem to be at the highest risk of not receiving sufficient sleep in terms of the quality and quantity. Evidence specifies that these students are receiving less than the recommended 8 hours of sleep per night and suggesting a relation between sleep and weight gain. The information provided proposed the question of, is there a relationship between sleep quality or duration and weight gain among undergraduate, university, or college students between the ages of 18 to 22? This presentation will go over the background of this topic, the objectives, the method of study design used, statistical analysis used, any ethical dilemmas, and the limitations of the research. Obesity has been steadily on the rise within the last few decades, with an estimated 1 in 3 young adults classified as obese or overweight. Obesity is measured with the use of body mass index calculations, which is calculated by dividing weight in pounds by height in inches squared and then multiplying by a conversion of 703. A BMI over 25 to 29.9 indicates being overweight, and a BMI over 30 indicates obesity. This is where health problems can start to develop and affect long-term life. Being obese as a young adult puts those at risk of developing a physical morbidity and premature mortality as they get older. It can also affect them socially by instilling insecurity, anxiety, and an overall lack of confidence. There are a multitude of potential health consequences that accompany being obese. They range from type 2 diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea, metabolic disorder, asthma, and cardiovascular disease. These are essentially ailments that cause poor health-related quality of life. Young adults who become overweight or obese are at a high risk of carrying the weight over to their later adulthood, and then possibly passing on their unhealthy behaviors to their children. Numerous studies express associations between sleep and being overweight and obesity. The emphasis of sleep and obesity associations are precisely having a shortened sleep duration, poor sleep quality, sleeping at later times, and inconsistent bedtimes on a day-to-day basis. The most frequent poor sleep behavior examined is short sleep duration, which occurs when one sleeps less than the recommended hours for their age range. Short sleep duration is frequently associated with obesity and can cause hyperglycemia and even an adverse change in one's metabolic system. Insufficient sleep is linked to poor impulse control and poor risk-taking behaviors, as well as cognitive and psychological deficits. These are all possible factors that can possibly contribute to weight gain. There are other existing reports that suggest that bedtime and wake times are more closely associated to obesity than sleep duration, as stated earlier. As a study by Old, Mayer, and Ridley in 2011 conducted a naturalistic longitudinal study and determined that bedtime and wake time were linked to a reduction of physical activity and weight gain. The authors concluded that sleep duration is dependent on the influence of sleep time and wake time, therefore having a greater effect on the relationship of sleep and obesity. There are studies that back the connection between time of sleep and obesity, largely suggesting that having a later bedtime allows more openings in the day to consume excessive calories, while also reducing access to healthy foods, possibly because cooking later at night may be harder for most people. Additionally, more variability in sleep schedules in young adults result in them being more likely to have a higher body mass index than those with regular schedules. Despite this evidence, the comparison between duration and timing have not been compared simultaneously. Thus, the variability of sleep and obesity are not clear. There are many gaps in this because causality remains in question due to the cross-sectional nature of the majority of these studies. These studies focus solely on sleep timing and duration, but there should be more evidence on what happens during the day when lack of sleep has occurred. There is data suggesting that the lack of sleep is due to the nature of undergraduate life, since students seem to be engaging in large consumptions of alcohol, excessive caffeine intake, and an elevated use of electronics. For instance, the kinds of food students crave during the day, activity levels, what their moods are, and how much energy they have should be taken into consideration. This is an interesting gap to fill and will provide a more extensive insight on the relationship between sleep quality or duration and weight gain among these students, and potentially help solve this issue by identifying causal factors. The objective of the study is to determine the causal factors of poor sleep quality and quantity in its relation to weight gain among these undergraduate students. Many students attending undergraduate school are under an immense amount of new stressors and in most cases are lodged into a brand new environment. Being under this new unfamiliar feeling can disrupt one's sleeping patterns without even knowing it. Consequently, it becomes a contributing factor to one's weight gain that can cause the start to an unhealthy lifestyle that can lead to introducing a number of health issues in the future. These actions and moods that occur after one has had poor sleep needs more research on and can possibly provide a deeper insight to the issue. Therefore, this study will be able to detect and identify the consequences of inadequate sleep through daily actions and understand why weight gain follows when poor sleep occurs. This study will be a longitudinal study conducted over the course of 1 semester or 4 months. My team will be measuring waist circumference, BMIs, and weight bi-weekly into a master spreadsheet. During the bi-weekly check-ins, they will bring their tracking sheet in to be recorded into a master spread. Afterwards, their tracking sheets will be given back to continue. Data will be stratified into the mean hours of sleep each student gets, thus determining the effect of meeting the recommended hours versus not meeting the recommended hours. This study design relies heavily on the compliance of the participants. This will be the tracking sheet for 1 week. Participants will be provided with enough to last every week for 4 months. This log makes it easy and simple for participants to collect their information, making it consistent while maintaining accuracy. There is also extra room in each box for additional comments or concerns. Their additional comments may elude advances in this study that we may not have realized before. Additionally, the space allows for questions or concerns that a participant may want to bring up during their next check-in session. The predictor of the study is to identify the causal factors that affect sleep duration or quality and weight gain. The main outcome of the study is to provide answers to how duration or quality of sleep obtained the night prior influences our food cravings, moods, and energy levels during the day, essentially causing weight gain. The exposure of the study is the amount of sleep obtained at night measured by hours in the tracking booklet. The outcome of the study is the weight gain measured by pounds, BMI calculated using height and weight, and lastly, weight circumference measured by instance. Approximately 100 subjects will be chosen, and these subjects must be completing an undergraduate degree and be between the ages of 18 to 22. This way, they will be able to see and hear the promotional posters and presentations given in the classrooms and hallways of the school. These posters and presentations will provide a little background of the study and when and where the booth will be held for participants to sign up. An email will be sent to those who signed up to attend a presentation explaining the details of the study, and those who choose to participate will sign the necessary paperwork and will be given instructions and the tracking booklet that day. They will also receive a small incentive in each check-in, a $5 gift card to Tim Hortons or Starbucks. Inclusion criteria includes undergraduate students, both male and female wanted, preferably a 50-50 split. Must be English language speaking, comfortable with weight and measurements taken, and have no existing sleeping or eating disorders such as insomnia, sleep apnea, and bulimia. They also must be detailed-oriented and organized to keep up with daily tracking of sleep, food intake, and moods. Exclusion criteria includes those who do not speak English, those who are not completing an undergraduate degree, not within the age range of 18 to 22, and who currently have a sleeping or eating disorder such as insomnia, sleep apnea, and bulimia. The exposure will be the hours of sleep received. Students will be provided with a sleep tracking sheet produced by my team, and it will include all of the obesity predictors, hours of sleep, quality of sleep, moods, activity and energy levels on a Likert scale, and food cravings will be tracked throughout the day. The main outcome will be their BMI, weight, and waist circumference. With this information being compared with their sleep patterns, it will give a correlation between sleep and weight gain. It will also cover other predictor outcomes caused by lack of sleep or poor sleep quality, such as food cravings, energy levels, and moods. These tracking sheets will be printed into a booklet and include the participant's name and age, and will be presented in an easy-to-use format for stress-free tracking. Each week will be labeled with the monthly date. This study will be analyzing the causal relations between sleep duration or quality and its correlation with weight gain, BMI increase, and waist circumference, along with food cravings, mood, and energy levels throughout the day. Exposures will be measured by number of hours of sleep obtained, food-based cravings such as sweet, salty, and savory, and mood levels based on a Likert scale. A 10 on the scale for mood would be the happiest, and a 10 on the energy scale would be the most energetic. A 10 on the activity scale indicates that the individual is highly active. The food cravings, moods, and energy levels are supplementary to the final outcomes between weight and sleep, as they provide the causal factors. With this information, the descriptive statistics will be analyzed. Sleep duration mean and each weight category will be stratified in order to create a line graph for each baseline weight, with the x-axis being the mean numbers of hours slept and the y-axis being changes in body weight or circumference. It will be measuring the sleep duration and BMI, weight, and waist circumference for each participant. This will provide a description as to how weight fluctuates depending on the amount of sleep one gets. The qualitative information also provides inferential statistics when analyzed. Understanding the correlation between sleep and mood, energy levels, and food cravings will provide insight to how those who acquired poor sleep gained weight. Was it dependent on their food intake based on junk food cravings, or did they just have no energy to be active? Were they in a bad mood that caused them to become sedentary that day? These causal factors that can potentially be answered through inferential observation. There are limited posing ethical issues in this study because it is a study that requires long-term commitment on behalf of the participants. Commitment is the most important requirement for the study. Therefore, this may cause issues within participants as they may feel constricted or stressed out by the study. Participants are to go on about their days as they normally would, and sleep as long as they normally would also. They are free to eat as accordingly and feel what they would want to feel during the day. All we ask is for honest results being tracked into the booklet with no judgment and no stress. They are open to communicate with us at any time and have our emails and numbers. The check-in process consists of weigh-ins and external measurements with no invasive procedures. This can potentially pose limited ethical dilemmas as they had an understanding of how measurements were to be taken, but still feel insecure by this contact. The daily journal entries may conflict with the personal lives of the participants, especially since they are students, and that may pose an issue. Participants are allowed to opt out of the study freely whenever they don't feel comfortable or simply do not want to continue. Some of the limitations to the research are the loss to follow up. Their personal information of email, phone number, and program will be collected at the beginning of the study to combat the internal validity of loss to follow up. To avoid recall bias, emphasis will be placed on filling the booklet exactly when they wake up, when their mood or cravings change, and when their energy levels increase or decrease before the day ends. This will also help collect the most accurate information. To prevent response bias, building a trusting relationship with the subjects and providing incentives will be the best way to ensure accurate results. Overall, because this is a longitudinal study, there is more room and time for error. With that being said, creating a trusting relationship between researcher and participant will ensure the most precise results and open communication where confusion may occur. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.